Good evening and welcome to TCM. I'm Dave Karger. November is Trans Awareness Month. And for 2 Mondays this month, we've been showing lineups of films that feature trans characters. Last week, I had Willow Caitlin McClay, the co-author of the book Corpses, Fools, and Monsters, with me. This week, I have her co-author, Caden Mark Gardner, here for another lineup of films. Caden, welcome. It's so nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
I think we're going to start off tonight with a film that might be one of the best-known movies that features a prominent trans character, and that's Dog Day Afternoon from 1975, starring Al Pacino and, of course, Chris Sarandon in an Oscar-nominated performance. This is a movie that's based on real events. Al Pacino plays Sonny, who commits a bank robbery, and in the course of the movie, we learn that part of the reason that he's doing it is to raise funds for gender-affirming surgery for his lover. And that's where Chris Sarandon comes in a really fascinating performance. So when you were doing research for your book, what did you learn about the character of Sonny, and how did this film affect their lives after it came out?
When we were doing the book Corpses, Fools, and Monsters, we did want to look into the real-life story that the film's central drama was based on. We looked at the mainstream publications that sort of talked about the robbery, and even there's like this major magazine that actually sort of teased the queer element, The Boys in the Bank, referencing the gay play and movie. But when we were looking at the sort of trans element about the real-life partner, we found that it actually did get a lot of coverage in the gay community because the real-life person, John Voitovich, who was the mastermind of the robbery, did get married in a ceremony to an Elizabeth Eden. And their wedding was covered in Drag magazine, which was actually run by a great drag queen activist, Lee G. Brewster. And Eden actually said the attention actually got her booted out of her apartment because she actually did pass at the time. And there was also the fact that Voitovich had connections to the Gay Activist Alliance, the GAA, which was a post-Stonewall activist group. And Voitovich's associations with that kind of had a lot of mixed feelings about members of that group who didn't take too kindly to Voitovich's exploits and how he was as a person. So it's a very complicated figure in all of this.
How would you say Chris Sarandon's portrayal of the trans character in the film is similar or not similar to what you learned about the real Eden?
Well, physically, they couldn't have actually been more different. As I said, she passed, and it's actually noted in some of the early 1970s interviews of Eden that described her appearance as like an old Hollywood star. I think even her cheekbones were compared to Katharine Hepburn, and she had a resemblance to Dolores Del Rio. It was something where she actually, again, did pass. It was just that she wanted surgery that was more sort of the anatomical change, not so much anything else, such as the cosmetic. Sarandon's performance is more that effeminate, put upon almost housewife in a way. And obviously the physical appearance still has a 5 o'clock shadow, but portrays the character's sensitivities and neuroses that were actually very much in line with how Eden was feeling at the time, and was often the reason that Voitovich in real life had justified doing the robbery.
I will say that even though it doesn't seem like it's that faithful to the true story, there is a lot to be admired in the way that Sidney Lumet and the cast deal with this trans element. It doesn't feel exploitative. It feels very matter of fact.
Yeah, and again, for a mainstream Hollywood film to have done something like this was a major deal. There was obviously a sort of limitations of how much of the relationship, which is still portrayed as this serious queer relationship, the film could show between Sonny and Leon on screen. But again, you believe in their relationship.
Well, it's a fascinating performance by Chris Sarandon and a terrific movie, so let's watch it and then we'll talk more about it afterwards, okay?
Oh, yes.
Here it is from 1975, directed by Sidney Lumet, Al Pacino and Chris Sarandon in Dog Day Afternoon. I'm back with Caden Mark Gardner, the co-author of Corpses, Fools, and Monsters, to talk a little bit more about Dog Day Afternoon. And in the book, you and Willow Caitlin McClay write about the epigraph that we see of the film that reads, Leon is now a woman living in New York City. And originally, I guess it was meant to be Leon is now a woman named Lana. And it seems like a subtle difference, but you explain why those are actually two quite different statements.
In the original shooting script, it did kind of honor the fact that there was this transition into this other identity, or this newer, sort of more authentic identity for the character. The Elizabeth Eden, the real life person, she kind of had this very sort of tempestuous relationship with John Voitovich in real life. And it was not a romance that ended up lasting. I would say at a certain point in an interview, Eden actually stated she never did love Voitovich, whereas Voitovich would go on to continue to sort of flex his muscles and his exploits with this robbery and doing it for love, but at the same time referring to Elizabeth by her former name that she did not much appreciate. As far as I know, in her final years before she passed from AIDS, they were not in contact.
Obviously, Chris Sarandon playing this character is one in a long line of heterosexual performers playing LGBTQ plus characters and often getting Oscar nominations for it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's something that you encountered a lot in the research for this book. What's your feeling on it generally? Do you feel like any representation is good representation?
I think there can certainly be subtleties. And again, for the mid-70s, this was considered a major breakthrough. But at the same time, it seemed that even though the central plot element is bank robbery for a sex change operation, or at least that's how the legend went, there was still the common perception, because you were seeing Sarandon as an actor, as a man, that you were still viewing it through a lens of male-to-male love and affection and romance. So that is part of the problem. And, you know, in the early 70s, you did have, again, the Warhol superstars like Holly Woodline and Candy Darling, although not really necessarily appearing in trans roles, although those movies were far and few between at the time. You also had a John Waters player named Elizabeth Coffey Williams, who actually stated that she did try out for the role of Leon in Dog Day Afternoon and was gently told to turn her away. And that was not sort of the casting they were aiming for, even though, again, she probably was a lot closer to the real life Eden than most of the people who tried out for the role.
Yeah, it's fascinating because even Sidney Lumet apparently described the Al Pacino character in this film as gay. But to hear you talk about it and write about it in the book, that might not really be an accurate reading of the character.
Yeah, this was also at a time where sort of the terms transvestite, drag queen, gay were often in this sort of cobbled umbrella. So the outsider perception could often be interchanging a lot of those identities at the time, even though there were subtleties. And in the case of Elizabeth Eden, her identity as a trans woman seeking medical change would have put her in a completely different category than that.
Well, it's so interesting to look at Dog Day Afternoon under this new lens. So Caden Mark Gardner, thank you so much for being here and offering your insight. I really appreciate it. What do you say we stick around and talk about one more movie?
Oh, yes.
Okay, don't go anywhere, because coming up next, Caden and I will talk about a fascinating drama from 1997 that won the Golden Globe for Best Foreign Language Film.
Next on TCM, Ma Vie en Rose. Then the Christine Jorgensen story. And later, Paris is burning. Get fired up for more TCM tonight.